Hey, everybody. So I was running a little late today. I'm glad I made it in time. There's a lot going on today. As you can see in the back, if you're watching last question and answer, by the way, welcome to the live question and answer here at Broadway Upholstery School. And hopefully you get a lot out of these questions and answers, and mostly on the YouTube channel and the online classes and the Facebook and all that. So we have a couple of things. So that's been stripped down almost to where I need it to be. A couple of more things I have to do, but what's interesting is how sleek it looks, and I want to show you. I'll get to that. I have some horsehair in the shop today, and I have Jimmy who wrote in on the horse that we're using the horsehair on. No, hi Jimmy.
Trigger was the horse's name.
Jimmy's here with this is going to be interesting. We're going to be showcasing an ottoman that he did on his own, and show you, with his permission, we're going to tweak it. And it brings up a really interesting thing about working on your own. I'm sure you guys have experienced this, even you guys in the journeyman stage of your adventure here in upholstery, where you get stuck or something didn't come out quite the way you wanted it to. But you didn't have an instructor hanging over you showing you what you were doing wrong. And this is common, I think, that happens. Even though Jimmy's taken the class a few times, I could see as soon as I looked at the stool, I knew exactly what he was struggling with. That I'll show him. We'll showcase this, and I'll show him the little things that he could do to improve the job. And he did a fairly good job. I'm not saying he didn't do a good job, but this what the difference is a lot of times it's stretching, you guys. And if you watch my videos, I really stress the tensions and how to stretch fabrics. Anyhow, so welcome. We're going to get to the other exciting thing. We have Randy, who I'm going to be calling, and we're going to be interviewing him. We heard a lot of good things about our interview with Blair, and I think he got a lot out of it too. That was 2 weeks ago, right, Jimmy? I think.
Yes.
2 weeks ago. So Randy graciously has given us his time. So we're going to call at about 4:10 for him. So, but meanwhile, we're going to do is go over the YouTube comments first, I think. And I think Patrick has emailed those to me. So let's see if he's done that. Actually, you know what? Let's start with the. Hold on a second. No, we will do the. Oh, finally, okay. He's got it better. Let's do the YouTube ones and get right into it because we have a lot to cover. So welcome everybody. I left a note on there about Randy joining me. So usually you could talk. He answers some comments and questions on there, but obviously if he's talking to me, he won't be able to do that. So after the talk, he'll be able to catch up on comments because Patrick's not in the house to do that. So on YouTube, making rollover arm caps. That was one we did a few years ago, I think. How simple! Exclamation point! I love this man's accent and demeanor. What a guy! I think they're talking about you, Jimmy.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, why would they say that?
Well, it's funny about the Boston accent. It's only recently that people have said to me, I never heard, oh, you got a nice accent. It was usually people didn't like the Boston accent, Jimmy. Point.
Well, I think they have to get used to it. They pick up on it. But I mean, what I like, because of the job that I do, I get an awful lot of people from New York, Florida, California, Midwest, Wisconsin, and so on. And I'll tell you, there is a little, especially in the South too, because I remember almost offending somebody when I said, "Oh, you're from Georgia." Don't say that. I'm from wherever else it was. I was like, "Oh my God, sorry, I didn't know." But it's interesting.
Right. Yeah. So the reason I know, when I used to teach in an adult ed, and I've mentioned this before, and I think this is pretty funny. It's got to be 30 years ago now, and it was closer to Boston, a suburb of Boston, but it might as well be Boston. And they offered an adult ed class called "How to Reduce Your Boston Accent," or "How to Rid Yourself of the Boston Accent." How about that, Jimmy?
I don't know why they say that.
Why don't you just rid yourself of your personality? That's your personality.
I think that it's something, your accent, regardless of wherever you're from around the world. It says a lot about you, and it's fun. I mean, it's really fun because, again, when I remember an awful lot of people coming in from New York, and you can pick up the difference between the Bronx and Queens.
Some people are really good at it.
Yeah,
They
I
do.
got it because you know what?
Yeah.
I spoke to people and they said, "Oh, I'm from Queens." Oh, okay. And I'm trying to remember the tone and how
Right.
they sounded out things. And then you got people from Queens and Brooklyn and so on. Oh my God, there was a difference, and I thought, oh my God, this is like unbelievable. And then when you picked up on it, said, "Oh, you're from Queens. How'd you know that?" Oh, well, geez, I just sit around.
So the next one is restoring a vintage 1950s Alf Svensson Danish chair. That's a mouthful, isn't it, Jimmy?
Yeah, you had a hard time saying it.
Hello, how would you clean the original fabric on this kind of a chair? Well, cleaners today are better, much better than when I first, upholstery cleaners are much better today than they were when I first started in this business, because when I first started, fibers were starting to change at that point. They started to introduce a lot of synthetics, and I think the cleaners really weren't up to snuff with with the new fibers. So there are a lot of horror stories out there about cleaners coming in and doing a worse job. It looked worse after they were done. But so I would suggest have any professional cleaner can look at a fiber today and really, really do a good job, and they can test it in the area to make sure that it's a good job. But any professional cleaner, I wouldn't try to clean an older fiber like on that chair yourself. I would have a professional cleaner come in. Usually, what I tell people is if you have other things like carpeting, drapery, any other soft furnishings that need to be done, you should have them come in and do everything, because it's usually more cost effective that way than having to come in and do one chair, right? The next one is the Upholstery Show Live. Daphne, I love it when people comment on the Upholstery Show Live. That was kind of like one of the benefits of this show that we didn't think we were going to have, Jimmy, is that people would be commenting. That's great because it shows interest. And I've been told for every one comment that you get on a YouTube video or on the show, it represents maybe 10 or 20 or 25 more people than just the person commenting. So it's great. Daphne says, thank you for answering my question on my back from a little vacation. See you Monday. And I'm not sure if Daphne is here or not. You know what? I hope this is working. Can you guys comment? Can you hear me? Is there somebody out there? Please comment to make sure that I'm live and that you can hear me. I know that I've got 6 people, I think. Just want to make sure that we're on. And then how to apply leather to a drop-in seat. Oh no, let's go back. There's one before that. Club chair A to Z part 7. So we're getting a lot of decent feedback from there. I think somebody did. Patrick probably wouldn't post it, but somebody was complaining that they only saw my head in some of the things that I was doing. I have to tell you that in all honesty, the YouTube classes we don't set up exactly the way we do on the online classes. I mean, the online classes are kind of like a production, whereas the YouTube classes, oftentimes I don't have people around. Sometimes we're in more of a hurry because it's a customer's project. So we're not as attentive with the camera angles, for sure. I'll admit that. But that's why we did the online classes. So if you're new to this, if you're new to the station, check us out. You could take advantage of all the free stuff, no problem. The YouTube, the Facebook at Broadway Upholstery at Facebook, and the question and answer. You can use all 3 of those. They're free. You can do that forever. But the online classes are kind of like if you're really a serious hobbyist, or if you want to do a better job on the one-off that you're doing, I definitely would advise you to take a look at that. And we've had people who really take advantage of the store that we have at Upholstery on Broadway. So that's the 5th connection there, I guess. I don't go on promoting. I don't like self-promotion. As you guys know me, I don't like doing it. But we have handpicked all the materials on the Upholstery on Broadway website. That's where you find it. That are suitable for especially beginners. The tools, the materials. So the reason I bring this up, somebody just recently bought. It took years. It was one of the first things I did way back before Patrick was even born. I started doing a how-to book on upholstery, basic upholstery, and we put together a kit. And somebody just purchased it, and we're really happy. Her name was Mary Lou. So hopefully she'll be checking in. Be interesting to see what her progress is on that. And Denise says, you have no problem hearing you. Thanks, Denise. So on that club chair, I just wanted to make that point about, that was a part 7. I think we're almost nearing the end of this, if that's not the end, but it was an extensive one. We don't have I apologize because we don't have a lot of time for these series of A to Z, which we know people like it and they benefit from this. So we'll try to present more of those. But the comment here, let's see what the comment is. Another great video of this chair. Question, do you see any benefit to using muslin to close up the opening before putting on the Dacron? So the thing about muslin, you're going to see other YouTube people out there offering classes, some who have really been doing it longer than I have. Because there was this huge gap in the upholstery industry, and a lot of that came about because of manufacturers, and especially in the New England area, we got hammered by some of the big manufacturer box stores that came in and started selling upholstery for like really cheap, and then offering all kinds of credit, no payments and things like that. Really killed the industry around here. I'll give you an example. I won't mention the store. You guys probably can figure it out. But we had in Framingham, Massachusetts, we had like 13 upholsterers. They were independent upholsterers. They were all busy. All of a sudden, this big store comes in. They buy overseas, and I don't have to go into the labor difficulties with that and the unfair labor practices of some countries that are overseas. I won't mention it. But the bottom line is they could offer a product that wasn't too bad. Cosmetically, it's a good product, but not internally. I want to talk about that a little bit too with you about this chair. What are we trying to teach? So the point is, there was a huge gap. Let me get back to my thought here. There was a huge gap in the knowledge. A lot of these people just faded out. So there was this gap that was left because of these big stores. There wasn't a lot being taught. So what filled the gap for a lot of upholsterers when it started to come back were people without the type of knowledge. I have to be careful. They had great knowledge. They had great slipcover and drapery knowledge and sewing knowledge, but they did not have the basic upholstery knowledge. I'm not saying they're bad upholsterers. They're not, or they're bad teachers. They're not. They're actually pretty good, but they're teaching a little differently than what we do. I'm really old school, but what that means is, and you'll see, I'll demonstrate it with Jimmy's ottoman today. Is that there's more attention that's focused on the internal, number one, and more attention focused on stretching material so that it lasts longer and that it stays that way longer. So a traditional upholsterer is always looking for something to make it last. We're not selling a product. We're not making a product that's going to wear out after 6 or 7 years and you're going to come back and get it upholstered again. I don't think I could stay in business that way. I think people would be upset. When they come to a custom upholsterer, they expect quality. So I'm running a little overtime for Randy. Randy, I hope you can wait for the call. I just want to get through the YouTube comments. The next one is how to apply leather in a drop-in seat. Hi, love your work. What size staples do you use on leather? 1/2-inch staples would be better than the 3/8, you guys, a long staple. Usually leather's a little thicker. Outside arm of a sofa, they just wrote nice. Repairing a pop button, got a lot of comments on this. Is there a way to repair a button on a leather tufted ottoman where the button has fallen through the leather? Big problem. That's a big problem. You need to retrieve that button somehow, unless you could somehow get a piece of fabric and make your own button. A lot of people can't do that. You're gonna have to retrieve that. You're gonna have to dig in there and cut the twine that's holding it, because the twine's still attached to the button, I suspect, and retwine it and try to grab the leather where the hole is in. And that's a little tricky too. So it tells me that the leather ripped. So that could present a problem. Sorry, I don't have anything else for you. But before we get to the Facebook, let's call Randy, because I think you guys might be interested. Let me just catch up. Deborah has some sad news, Jimmy.
What?
Deborah says, hi, everyone. Hope you had a good week. And Deborah says, my upholsterer friend close to me died this week. A young guy. So sad. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And Randy said there's no problem. He's hanging around the shop. So I think, Randy, what I'm going to do is get through, if you don't mind, I will get through the Facebook because there's a couple of interesting things there, and he doesn't mind waiting. That'd be great. Today's work in progress. This is from. I'm not sure who this is from because I can't see it. But you know who you are. Very intimidated because the last upholstery was spot on. I also learned some other ways to do things. Last photo is how the back was finished. Let me just get this up here for you guys. So there's the chair. I'm pretty sure that's our new fabric. I think this is Denise, I'm not sure. I got a question on here that I want to answer too. But what the focus here is a different way of closing a back. I have to be honest with you, when I see double piping where it probably shouldn't be, where I don't, in my opinion, it shouldn't be there. Honestly, it's just an easier way of closing up an outside. The harder way is what I would call the right way, which is the single piping. It's a little harder to do. So when I see things like that, I know that there might have been a struggle. But that's just my opinion. I mean, I have seen designer pieces, newer pieces that have double piping almost everywhere. So that's from Gabriel, you guys. So Lisa, oh, we already answered this. I'm wondering, Lisa, if you can update us on this project that we commented on. I gave you some tips last week. If you could comment on that, that would be great. And then I want to read, Jean says, have you ever been in the middle of a job and got stuck? What was it and how did you solve it and make it right with the customer? Stuck. What she means by stuck is maybe, reaching a point where you didn't have any answers or couldn't finish the job. I think that's the question. I don't think that's ever happened. I tell people all the time that to be an upholsterer, you need to be a good problem solver. So if she can give me, Jane can give me an instance, maybe an example, maybe if you got stuck on something, maybe I can answer that. Well, I mean, make it right with the customer. So have I ever had any problems with, I've never called a customer and say, I can't do something. That would be bad. I've never called a customer to say, this is much more work than I thought, so we need to charge you more. That's not good either, because you've contracted already for the job. The way I look at that is if you go over your time, and you can always, it smooths out over time, I think, between those jobs and the jobs that maybe it took you a half an hour less than you thought, and that adds up to that job that took more. And I've had some really impossible jobs. One that I remember that I gave an estimate for one of these antique theaters. I won't mention the theater in Boston. One of these old theaters that had soft furnishings. I mean, usually you see theaters, just the seats are upholstered. Well, this theater had upholstery on the walls. It had upholstery on the balcony. It went all the way around like a crescent shape, and it had a trim on the outside. A gimp on the outside of that. So you had to actually, when I first looked at it, I only saw the trim on the front side. And then I realized I needed to put trim on the back side, which required me to hang over the balcony and use a glue gun at the same time. Not OSHA approved, I can tell you that. I'm contracted to do it. I needed to do it. I guess that's an instance where you have to question yourself, I guess. But I managed. So some jobs do turn into, I guess that's the point. Some jobs turn into a lot more than you bargained for. Right, Jimmy?
Yes, I think anybody who's done any type of DIY project, regardless, painting something, putting something together, you always you say, oh, geez, it'll take me half an hour, and it ends up taking 2 hours. So I mean, it's a sad reality that we all have. But
Jimmy, can you write this? Hold on a second. Can you give me a piece of paper over there and a pen? And Randy, remind me, I'm gonna be calling you in a minute, but I didn't wanna, give everybody this phone number because I'm not sure if it's your work phone number. If you wanna give your work phone number, I have your name already up on the board. Um, I don't mind you do that, a little self-promotion today. It's the least I can do because you've been a very good help lately. So let me give Randy a call, and this is gonna be a segment where we're calling, well, I'm gonna ask Randy some questions because there's a lot of questions I have for Randy that I'm not sure about that if I've asked him before. Let me just give him a call. Hey, Randy,
Hey, hi.
how you doing?
Okay.
So, thank you for coming on board today, and thank you for helping out also in the comment sections in past shows. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. It's fun. It's entertaining.
Yeah. So I have your name. The name of your shop is Esquire Upholstery, right?
Right.
And you are located in.
Cudahy, Wisconsin.
Can you spell that for me?
Cudahy, as in Cudahy bacon, apple Cudahy bacon.
Okay, Cudahy, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And so you're an upholsterer. How long have you been in business?
I started the business in 2018.
Wow, I didn't know it was that recent.
Yeah, it's that recent. Was taking classes at the local tech school since like '09, and started doing some things for people in between there. Mainly pay for my class, you pay for the supplies, I'll do your project, just don't be in a hurry.
Right. So for 9 years you've been upholstering.
You're right.
And so how did you come across Broadway Upholstery School?
It was one of those things is I was looking for a better explanation on how to do something. I don't remember exactly what it was, and started searching, and your YouTube stuff came up.
Okay. So do you have an idea how long ago it was? Maybe 2-3 years ago?
No, that had to be about 10, maybe 2012, so
Okay.
years ago.
YouTube. Okay. So
Yeah.
YouTube.
Well, what's funny is I think the same time you started YouTube.
Yeah, that's very close to when I started. So,
Yeah.
I tell people when I first started, Patrick was a lot younger, very much just doing it for fun and a hobby. But he did see, so we started out being a little goofy, but I tell people all the time that we quickly realized as people were dependent on the knowledge, because I just talked about the gap in the knowledge for traditional upholstery. And so we started to get real serious, especially after, we got a call from someone out by you who had 2 kids. She's a single mother and she was supplementing her income by doing upholstery and watching the YouTube videos. So I said, okay, we need to get a little bit more serious. We did. And I think that the channel reflects that. So that's great that you did that. So from YouTube, from 2012 until the time that you opened your shop, you must have gained some confidence of sorts.
Yeah, like I kept the local tech school used to do upholstery classes. They did an adult ed.
Yeah.
One evening a week, 3 hours. I think I did that 2 nights a week with 2 different instructors for 9 or 10 years, up until they canceled things with the pandemic.
So you were going 10 years taking these classes. So you're taking up 1 class a week, and you were really dedicated to that. Is that right?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And what happened was I ran out of projects. So I went looking to people I knew for projects, and went, okay, if you want it done, you buy my class, pay for the supplies, and I'll get it to you by the end of the semester.
Are you guys listening to this little tip? If you guys have any ideas, that's a fantastic idea, Randy. So you can have your friends, pay for a class. I've had people do that, but I don't think a lot of people take advantage of that or think about that. That's really quite smart to do that. People are willing to do that. So if you're taking a class a week and you're taking, 4 a month, that's 12 hours. I'm just trying to get an idea for the total hours. I'm guessing maybe,
It was 3 hours a week
Uh-huh.
for 16 weeks.
so how many?
Is what the semester was.
So, they didn't run continuous semesters either, right? So,
They ran like your typical tech school semester. One semester ran January through middle of May, and another semester ran from just after Labor Day until mid-December.
I'm guessing that if you were lucky, you got 100 hours a year in on that. You think?
Yeah, probably.
So 100 times 9 years, or 10
Yeah.
years, 9 years. So you got about 900 hours of instruction in there, right?
Right.
900 hours of instruction plus you're watching the YouTube. So tell me, where are you in your? Where would you say you are now in your business? Are you busy? I mean, are you?
I'm as busy, probably as busy as I want to be. Because what it was last 2020 is when I retired from the full-time day job. And I'm supplementing income with upholstery. So I spend probably 4 hours a day out in the shop working on things. And I have people calling me. I probably have projects right now till the end of March. I think I was going to tell somebody I can do the next one.
So you're talking 8 weeks, at least 8 week out, right? 8 weeks.
Well, no, 4 or 5 weeks, yeah. Because tomorrow's 1st of March.
4 or 5 weeks out work. That's fantastic. I'm writing all this down. This is a healthy business that you have.
Yep. Yeah. And like you say, I probably could be busier if I wanted to be.
It's funny you should say that, because you're on the retired things. And we interviewed Blair. Did you see Blair's interview 2 weeks ago? Yeah, you were on, and he's a young man. He's 25, and he's just starting out. And I'm sure that he would want more work. So it depends on where you are, guys, and and this is, I think Randy's in a really good position. Could be had another gig, so to speak, and he's retired now, and he likes what he's doing, right, Randy? And
Right.
you're doing it as supplemental. So I have to ask you this, but I don't want to embarrass you about how long it takes you to do things, because your situation is that you're not, under a lot of stress to get work done, and you probably tell people, "Listen, I'm a retired guy, and do you mind waiting a little bit longer?" I assume that people know you, and that's where you're at, right?
I try and give them a reasonable time. It's like, okay, I'm doing this part time, and I try to set some expectations. What I also try to do is, because I don't have a lot of storage space, is it's like, get something lined up, maybe take a deposit for fabric, and then call them the week before and say, can you bring this, or can we get this to me, on Friday or Monday or whatever, so I can start it, I can work on it, I can get it done, and I can hopefully get it out.
That's also very smart, and I try to do the same thing. Try not to pick anything up until I have the fabric and I'm all lined up to do it. It sounds simple, but you would be surprised how many people feel though that they don't physically have a job in the house, that they really don't have it, or they're afraid they're going to lose it. Now, I was around. My mentors were of depression. They lived through the depression, so their philosophy was a lot different than mine is today, or what yours is. So they had this idea they had to capture the furniture. They'd take the deposit, capture the furniture, and keep it. And unfortunately, I think that makes sometimes a customer a little anxious, with the time. So you're doing it really smart. Can I ask you? Did you develop this sense of this timing in your business? How, is it? Did you have some crossover skills? Because it sounds like you have.
That back in a previous life, before I hung drapery, I did project management.
Oh, I can tell,
For a
man.
large corporation.
You know, I'm pretty good at 20 questions there, Randy.
And also the outsourced writing on the wall and
Wow.
left there, you know, couldn't afford to stay and do nothing. So I picked up a job with a decorator here in town doing drapery and window treatment install.
I love it. I love it. So you did have great skills before you came into upholstery, that you crossover skills. Did you have any sewing ability before?
No,
No sewing ability.
none at all. Learned to sew as I learned to upholster.
This is really interesting because upholstery, the reason that no sewing ability I want to talk a little bit about is because in upholstery, we are not seamstresses. An upholsterer would never say, unless you're doing drapes, that's a different thing. But if you're just doing upholstery, what's that?
Yeah, that's different.
There's a difference. The difference is you're a stitcher when you're sewing. You're stitching half-inch seams, and I guess the point is, don't let no sewing ability get in the way of jumping in on the upholstery, you guys, because
It's so funny the way you said it, because when I was in the upholstery classes at the tech school, you could always tell the seamstresses or the apparel sewer.
yeah. Tell us about that.
Extremely precise, pin living daylights on everything.
Yeah. Pinning
You
is
know, and just couldn't get it in that it's a straight seam.
right.
Unless you're doing a cushion, if you cut something half inch bigger than what you need, it's not going to kill you.
Yes.
Unless you're doing cushions or something along that line. But
So the thing about that, that's really you're really observant. That's really observant because so in upholstery, you're probably spending about 80 to 90% of your time on the bench, as they say, like on the bench. Another 20% on the sewing machine. If you're doing straight traditional furniture, that's how it is. If you're doing more manufactured or modern furniture, the numbers even out. It's like 50 and 50%, 50%. So, but it's still the stitching required is not what I would call seamstress. So I think the reason this is important for people who are, if they look at my channel and they think it's daunting, I think you're a good example of why don't let no sewing ability get in your way. I guess that's the bottom line is.
you're probably better off because you don't have any bad habits.
Exactly.
It's a lot of just stitching in a straight line.
So where did you get some of the sewing tips from me, or did you take other more focused YouTube videos on sewing? How did you do that? How did you learn how to do that?
Some from you, and just generally out of the tech school class where you pretty much did your own sewing.
Yeah, that's good.
It was, here's how you sew welt cord. Take some scrap fabric, take some welt cord, and go practice for an hour or two.
Yeah, that's what it is. Practice. So speaking of,
and don't be afraid of the look of the sewing machine, because it's actually simpler than most home machines.
that's why we like the Juki. I even like using the Juki because the Juki is a good student machine. That's what it's designed for. Especially the older Jukis, it's designed for it's an introductory machine, but guess what? It really sews a good stitch too.
Up until about a year and a half ago, I sewed on a probably 1930s-ish straight stitch Singer machine.
And that did the job.
Yeah, finally bought me out, so that machine worked like a charm.
Hey, it's whatever you're comfortable with. I know a woman who'd use a treadle machine. She wouldn't use a plug-in machine. Everything she did was on the treadle. Can you believe it?
Yeah, a lot of control.
Yeah, that's right. before I forget, do you want to give people your phone number in Wisconsin, or do you need to do that? It sounds like you don't even need to do that.
I can, it is 414.
Hold on a second. I'm going to write it down on the board here because I like to plug whoever comes on. By the way, if you're somebody out there that wants to come on, just call me. 414
533
533
7171.
7171, and that's in Wisconsin.
And that's in Wisconsin, and it does voice and it does text. And
So another question, a couple of questions. One is, do you sell your own fabric, or do you have people bring your fabric?
I sell fabric, and the only fabric I take, if somebody's bringing it in, I'm on a referral list for like 2 independent fabric stores in town.
Good for you.
So if they buy the fabric through that store, I'll use that fabric because the designers that work there are pretty good at, one, estimating, 2, helping people select the right fabric.
So you will do your own fabric and COMs, as they say in the business, custom
Yeah.
zone materials.
Yeah, but I will pick against COM. It has to literally come out of one of these 2. They're 2 little family-owned fabric stores in town.
So what I think is great about where you are at is that you're not desperate to sell fabric, and you could take you can capture some of the work just on the labor end of things by doing custom zone materials. I think you're in a good position. I guess the other thing I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, is how long, and I know this might be a guess and I'm putting you on the spot. You see this wing chair we have up here? Let's say that not the restoration of it, but if you've got just a reupholstery on a wing chair, do you have any idea how long it takes you, Randy, to do that?
I would probably estimate a wheelchair out in, do about 10, 12 hours on it.
Wow, that is like super fast. Are you talking like start to finish stripping and then that?
Well, I'm talking about if I was going to price it out, if I price it out somewhere between 10 and 12 hours worth of labor. It may take me more. I'm not real sure.
I think you're underestimating yourself, unless you're like this speed that I see here. 10 to 12 hours for a fully upholstered wing chair, if it's just a reupholstered, that is extremely fast. But I've known people, I've known upholsterers who are that fast.
And I had that habit, I think, of underestimating what I should be charging for labor.
And you know what's interesting, man? I'm glad.
Yeah, what I haven't done is taken like that wing chair, and every time I came out to do something on it, kind of keep track of my time. How long it really takes me.
So I used to work on a project where I had to do that. I mean, the project I was involved in was it was a project where we were teaching people with disabilities, granted, but I had to clock people. But these were people who had disabilities. But one of my students, I'll never forget this. It was 110 hours for a wing chair. And in all fairness, it was a lot of hand. We did everything by hand instruction. The object wasn't to do it fast, but there's a potential to I guess the reason I'm bringing that up, there's a potential to really spend a lot of time on a particular piece of furniture. And us upholsterers, we're not that good at estimating our own hours. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest things we don't factor in is to strip the piece of furniture. Like this piece up here, this took me at least 3 hours to take apart. And that's usually not factored in on our time. So you probably should be. But I think
I tend to underestimate how long it takes to strip things down. Especially modern or somewhat current furniture.
Yeah, and I think that's what trips us up a little bit. So this is a great information for anybody out there who is a hobbyist. I'm looking at the TV screen when I'm saying this to you, Randy, or just starting their business. Is that plumbers? You call a plumber, and you can see it divided in quarter hours, right, Jimmy?
Yeah.
You get it down to 0.25. If they spend 1 minute over the hour, they're 1.25, right?
At least.
We don't do that.
It's usually by the
and they travel time and everything else.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, but they do it properly. But the difference between plumbers and upholsterers is that if your sink is clogged, you really do need a plumber, and you really can't argue with them, right?
Well, yeah, it
When your
depends.
plumbers, your electricians, a lot, if they're doing service work, they're doing it time and material.
Yeah, yeah,
As well. I mean, he'll tell you kind of upfront, well, it may take me 2 hours, well, it may take me 5. I don't know till I get there.
Right, and people are more accepting of that.
Yeah, I couldn't get away with that. I don't think you could get away with that. Well,
No,
it
I
could be
couldn't.
a 10-hour job, it could be a 20-hour job.
We were talking. I was talking to a good friend of mine who's a Harvard graduate. The guy's super smart. Whose chair that is, by the way, that wing chair. He's a super smart guy, and he was talking about disparity in labor, and there certainly is a disparity in what we do, I believe. But the problem is it's not essential. It's non-essential. So, but that still doesn't that doesn't mean the disparity goes away. I mean, I'm talking about the true value of what a job is worth. Um, so really, this how do you overcome that? There's a few things that you could do, and I wanted to ask you. See, you're in a different position than Blair. I think Blair should do this, being a young guy, and he's trying to pump his business up, really trying to get some action going, and that's to teach classes. But I'm not sure if that's something that. Would you ever be interested in doing what the guys at the tech school were doing for you and teach a class?
I've had that offer, and like I don't feel comfortable enough that I know enough to be able to take care of a lot of the stuff I've seen with what people walk in with. Because in that tech school class, it was you bring your own project.
Right.
So you start up a semester with about 16 to 18 people.
Right.
You probably end the semester with somewhere just less than a dozen, because at about 4 or 5 weeks, they figure out it's either too much work or too much time, and they just stop coming.
Yeah. And so, how many people do they allow in that class? Just one.
They initially allow, they register 16.
16.
Wow.
16.
Is that for one instructor?
That is one instructor, 3 hours,
Wow.
one night a week.
He or she must be younger than I am, because I got to tell you something. That's an Iron Man. That's an Iron. I used to do that 12, and I thought that was a lot when I was younger.
The one gentleman that was an instructor was, I think, right around my age, right in his early 60s. The other lady, and that guy had been doing it for 10, 12 years, easy. And the other one probably was a bit older than that.
Right.
And yeah, it's tiring, because you try, at least the people I had at least tried to get around and spend, a good 10 minutes with you. Here's what you do next.
Yeah.
Move on to the next person. Here's what you do next.
Right.
And
But
trying to keep track of what you told everybody to do and what project's going on.
Yeah, it's very challenging. I don't blame you for being for looking at that situation and being questioning if you could do it. But I think maybe not necessarily you, but I guess I'm talking more for Blair, that he could have 4 or 5 people. Try to do a smaller class first, and then what this does, not necessarily for you, but for him. For anybody who's thinking about starting a business, especially a storefront business, that's another thing that's important. If you're trying to do a storefront and garage, working out of your garage, which I think, do you have a storefront, Randy?
No, I work out of the garage.
That's fine. I mean, see, this is you're in a different, venue. It's a different thing for you. It's not like you're starting out, and you don't need to be, complicating the work.
And a number of people I know around here, if they are storefront, they may not necessarily be a storefront on a main street. They may be working, next to the auto body shop or something in a small building.
Right.
Kind of off the beaten path.
So hold on a sec. I'm just going to catch up on some comments here. But I know that I told people we would, either one of us would catch up. But while I have you on the phone, Jean is talking. She said, I lost my job a few months ago. I was a soft goods designer. Upholstery jobs kept falling in my lap, and I'm reluctant to turn anything away. Bills, in parentheses. Thanks for sharing all this knowledge. So that's why we had to get a little bit more serious with presenting the information. And then she says, I've done some personal upholstery and have all the tools I need. Really respect this craft. And then we got a call. I think Beth says, I've got an apprenticeship with the local upholsterer. Is that a rare thing? Absolutely a rare thing. That's a good question now, because we're talking to Randy, you guys, who owns his business out in Wisconsin, Cudahy, Wisconsin, and his phone number is 414-533-7171. Anybody out there who has some projects you want to send his way, that would be great. But what the point I wanted to make was, our apprenticeships rare? Yes, they are. The reason they are is because most upholsterers who are busy do not have the time, even if their intentions are good, they really don't have a lot of time to do it. So that, Randy had to pay for classes. Now in a traditional, and see, this is kind of a shame, Randy, in some ways, that at least, and I could speak for this industry, because it used to be a time 40 or 50 years ago where you could walk into almost any upholstery shop. It's just a kid, or and get a job doing something, sweeping the floor, pulling furniture apart, starting somewhere, and you would be paid too. They wouldn't expect that you'd do that for free. So in other words, the apprenticeship programs were available on a street level if they were available. Today, because I think things are tighter, I just don't think they're as available. So they're asking, is it? Oh, guess what? Let me read this. Are you looking at the comments, Randy? No.
No, I'm not.
Well, I'm looking at this name and I cannot pronounce it. It's Nahabath or something like that. And guess what? I'm from Wisconsin too! Exclamation point. So isn't that interesting? They have an apprenticeship at a local upholsterer. That's very rare. I'll tell you how rare it is. I got a call from somebody in France, and I mentioned this on the question and answer. She's actually got a degree in upholstery, and she was coming over here on a visa, and she asked if I could take her on as an apprentice, and I couldn't do it. I know, in all fairness, you have to be honest with people. I wouldn't have the time to devote to her, and that was a tough thing to pass up. But that's just the way it is. So getting back to you, and I think I'm going to be finishing up here. Is there anything that you would like to say to people out there about where they can improve their craft, or any information from you about your experience, and what your thoughts are? Okay, if you can collect yourself a little bit, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there anything you want to add?
I think the tech school route's good if you can, if they're still doing it. Like the tech school where I took the classes now here in Milwaukee, I don't think they're doing upholstery classes anymore since the pandemic.
Mm.
I think that the two instructors that they had left had kind of went, not sure I want to come back. So yeah, the problem is finding someone to, even instruct you.
So really, the world has gone to the internet for this. Is why I had to switch out too myself. And let's face it. I mean, the internet. We're going to be talking to Jimmy in a minute to show you, to demonstrate why the internet can only take you so far, and that online classes, in-person classes, are kind of the ideal, or an apprenticeship could be an ideal situation too. So, but that getting some of the knowledge, so you might get like 75% of the knowledge through the YouTubes, through the internet, but there's still a gap to be filled with the little nuances. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think there's at some point that you need someone either standing behind you and saying, no, that's not right, or, looking at it after you're done and explaining what you should have or could have done better.
And we're gonna do that with Jimmy. So I hope that you can stay with us to watch.
Yeah, I'm going to as soon as I want the phone because I had YouTube on the phone when I was talking. But I think in town there's only one upholstery shop that I know of that is large enough that takes, an apprentice and has somebody working through, and he does both residential, boat, and auto. Fairly
Wow.
big shop.
Yeah, that's he's covering a wide. He's trying to capture. That's good if he can do it. He's trying
Yeah,
to.
and he's been around town. He's been around 35 years.
Yeah. He's
So,
It sounds like he's catering. I mean, I understand you guys are big fishermen out there in Wisconsin.
yeah, there's a fair number of people who do both.
So I figured there's a lot of boaters
Little
out
less
there.
little less that do auto.
So we're gonna say thank you so much, Randy, for joining us today, and that was fantastic. And hopefully you can watch. I'm glad you're going to be able to watch Jimmy coming up.
Yeah, I'll catch the rest of it. I need to see Jimmy.
Okay.
Really? You're making me feel so good there.
Thanks.
Jimmy, my life's not that exciting.
Well, neither is mine. Trust me. Trust me.
Maybe together you could ignite.
Yeah, you know what? It'd be nice to get out to Wisconsin. I'd love to.
It's
go.
beautiful out there. I love it. I've been through it. Thanks a lot, Randy. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you. Take
Okay.
care.
All right. Bye bye. All right. Before we get to Jimmy, and we're gonna talk a little bit about this project that came in last week. It's the potty chair, as you guys remembered. Something I think I don't have. I'm not absolutely sure on this, but an update on it. Couple of updates. I think that this chair started its life as a regular upholstered seat, and just an upholstered seat. And I think that the owner became bedridden, couldn't go out to where they needed to go out, and they had the upholsterer fit this out to be a potty chair.
Well, you know what?
Because I see this piece here. This piece here is added on with these three huge screws coming this way. That's why I think this was an add-on, but it's a very old add. I mean, you're talking like this chair's 1840. I bet this could have been during the Civil War that this was fashioned out like this.
Well,
That's what
yeah,
I'm thinking.
they probably had to make some adjustments to their lifestyle given what they had in front of them at the time.
And
I hope that you are taking pictures of this as you go.
Yeah,
I know you may not film it, but I think it would be great considering now this is the second class.
So we're kind of excited, Jimmy. We've got a whole box of horsehair because this is going to be done in the original
Are you
way.
going to
Right?
use it? Will you estimate to be that for the whole chair?
It's all the insides.
All the
You
inside.
never upholster horsehair on the outsides. That's
No,
not
no.
done.
Or yeah, that.
Oh, just on the interior of the chair.
Okay.
So I did want to make a point about this chair.
Okay.
So a lot of people would look at this as they've fitted this out with a piece of wood, right? And really recently. But you wouldn't just, and by the way, they don't want a loose cushion. It has small loose cushion. This is going to be an upholstered flat seat like it probably started its life as with the horsehair.
Okay.
So the customer's interested in authenticity.
Oh, yes.
So what we're going to do, we're not going to just cover over this hole like this. Believe it or not, we're going to take the time to web over this hole, even though it doesn't look like it needs it. It's a very small indentation, But if you don't do that, so we're going to approach it like it was an open seat.
Okay.
We're not going to rely on that. We're going to keep it because we're going to try to keep all the original stuff and also the add-ons. So we've got two add-ons to this, I believe. I believe this was an add-on in about, like I said, the Civil War. So the chair's born in 1840. Then we have an add-on in the Civil War, and then we have an add-on probably much more recently here that they switched it out to an upholstered seat, to a seat with a loose cushion, not an upholstered seat. So there's some history. So some upholstery history to this chair.
Well, I'd be concerned with the seat itself, with the the little seat in the middle. Because number one, you wouldn't want it to get loose, and now all of a sudden you've done the job, and now you have to.
The more important thing is that if you go over that, and if you just put the horsehair and rely on the horsehair to fill a little hole in there, over time, you'll have the imprint will come right up to the fabric.
Yes.
That's why you don't be distracted by things like that. So Jimmy, I think that's it on that one. I think what I want to do is have you come over with your ottoman. I want you to show people. Just talk about what you've done at home.
Yeah, I'm not happy with doing it at home.
Why aren't you happy? Tell people why aren't you happy.
Well,
We want Jimmy to be happy.
No, you don't want to. So I'm still impressed with the size of that chair. That's one thing.
No, it's heavy too.
I'm sure.
Don't worry, I'll get it, Jimmy. You just watch like you usually do. I didn't say that. All right, Jimmy.
Well, this is something that my other half wants to do. She actually has a wingback chair with this, but I did it at home, which was a major mistake because of the fact that I didn't have any benches. I used basically a living room, and that's not a good thing to do. Again, having some of the right tools, not having an air gun like you would in class or here in the studio. I used my own hands, so I stretched things, and it really didn't come out as good as it should have. And
That's an interesting point, Jimmy. Your space.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't talk a lot about this, but space is important.
Well, I mean, I'm used to having this. I'm used to having, in the past,
Right,
in classrooms.
Right.
So you have the benches, or you have an area like this where you say, okay, I have the tools, I'm good. But when you start doing the process of working with the project, and you trying to say, okay, I'm gonna do this and this, and you know where to start and finish, that's a wonderful thing to do. But when you're working at home and you don't have a bench and you don't have certain things, it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Really, and this is why I'm glad I finished the way I did, but at the same time.
Tell me what you're not happy with, sir.
Well, because this.
Yeah.
But you can see it.
So if you were in a class, I would have, I was paying attention to your struggle, and you struggled with this.
Because it was at home.
So I see a couple of things. It's loose in there, and then over in here.
It's pretty much all the way around. Yeah.
So let's focus. First of all, what people get stuck on is they pay too much attention to everything at once, and they get flustered.
Yes.
So this is a big thing on the online classes that I stress. Don't stress yourself out. Make sure you get the section that you're working on where you want it before you work on your bow tie. Jimmy's got some nice bow tie pleats. It just needs to be tightened, Jimmy. Mm-hmm. So his job is about 90% done. He really is. He did better job than he thinks he did. He's got a fabric. It's a lighter colored fabric, so it's showing all the pulls and the looseness. So that's a problem.
Yes.
So and Jimmy knows how to two-way stretch. You know how to two-way stretch, and he probably broke it down. But I'll show you. I'll show you one thing that you didn't do.
Okay.
So forget about this. We don't have to loosen that.
Forget about it. Yeah.
Let's bring this up like this, and take a look at your staple work. Okay, I'm going to undo one half of the side. I know that you're not generous. You're not too generous with your staples, which is good for us right now. But you probably need more staple coverage, and you probably would have done that. You probably so. Let me take it to Kevin to see if he can improve on it. So we're going to undo a half of a side. Mm-hmm. Well, let's undo this one.
Do the whole thing.
No, you can't do all of it at once. I'll tell you why. So let's bring it back up. So we teach you how to do half sides at a time.
Okay.
Not the whole side.
Right.
So you've got one side stretched to a point, which is okay. It's almost like your pin tack. Okay. So what you need to do is, I have to show it this way just so people can see what I'm doing. Okay. It's a two-way stretch, but your two-way stretch, and I do this so fast sometimes that I don't even know I'm doing it.
Well, you've done it thousands.
Because that's what makes a better teacher is somebody that could break it down a little bit, and they remember that they had to learn somehow, you know. Mm-hmm. So you have to slow it down a little bit, right? So what the thing is the stretching. Okay, so I'm going to undo this because I have to just show you this. I'm going to undo this portion. Okay. because you have a drop on this ottoman, right? You have a drop. Let's see. You can tell that where do you get that? Right down, all the way down there. Okay. If this ottoman was half the size, you would have had no issues.
Okay,
Because I know that you two-way stretch.
yes.
Okay, because there's a bigger drop, the bigger the drop,
Uh-huh.
you have to do a two-way stretch near the top. That's what I'm trying to say. So what you do is you pin tack the bottom, you stretched it, pin tack, not paying any attention to this.
Okay.
You just pin tacked it. And then what you do is you come up, you don't have to do that either.
No?
You come right up to here, to this point. Okay? Stretch, two-way stretch is a two-way stretch as you're actually thinking. It's what I've devised this as a teaching tool.
Okay.
Instead of saying, Jimmy, apply a diagonal stretch right there. Most people will just look at you and say, what is he talking about? Diagonal stretch.
Uh-huh.
Because that's what it is.
Uh-huh.
But you break it down, breaking it down for you. So it's a stretch. It's a stretch this way and this way. It's a two-way stretch. But you're actually starting up in this area. Okay? And then
Okay.
you're carrying it down. Carrying it down means don't lose the stretch. Carrying it down, two-way stretch down here. And you can probably get, Jimmy, I don't even have any tacks.
Of course we
Why
don't.
don't you get a tack for me?
Where is the hammer?
We might not have a magnetic hammer here.
Oh, there you go.
I'm just going to use this. I'm just going to pin this
Okay.
just to show you. Okay, so what you've done is you've achieved, this is just a pin tag. You can't do this to all fabrics. You can do it to this one. You're not going to do any damage. But we have the stretch up in top here, and then we carried it down, and we got a tack here. But look what happens. This is loose.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to look what you have to do. You have to stretch this again and get this pin tag all the way over here. Okay, let's bring this up. Stretch and pin tack. And now I'm at the bottom. Oops, I'm at the bottom, right? And then it's still loose. Pin tacking is your best friend, right?
Okay.
So you can even get another pin tack way down here, Jimmy. Don't be afraid to do that. Prepping it, and not having to pull it. Let me just get this tack in here and show you the rest of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're gonna be done. Then I'm gonna show you how you can tighten up your. I'm gonna show you how you can tighten up that bow tie cleat. So let's bring this up again before we. You see a difference between
Yeah.
that side and this side? So now the trick is, don't go like this and project your pull marks. That if you concentrate your stretch, all the stretch is done to this point.
Mm-hmm.
But if you concentrate your stretch with just two fingers, you're going to have pull marks. So the best way to do it, Jimmy,
Mm-hmm.
come up like this and hold it with your palm. So you're grabbing a lot of the fabric at the same time.
Okay.
Staple. Now you can staple, 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 and then you can pay attention to your line too. It's
Mhm.
easy to pay attention to your line, which you have to pay attention to. So that the only thing that you missed
Mm-hmm.
was to stretch up at the top
Okay.
and carry that stretch down. Because
Okay.
you stretch at the bottom was fine. Okay, so let's talk about your bow tie pleats, which I love. This one came out pretty good.
Yeah.
But the way to tighten those up, one thing that you forgot to do, and you're allowed to do this, you can get, well, first of all, this needs to be a little tighter. So you have to do all your half sides first with the stretching technique that I showed you.
Okay.
And then you're gonna adjust your bow tie, right?
Okay.
So this has to be stretched down a little bit, and then don't be afraid to get a staple there and a staple there.
Okay.
That's what tightens this up, and you can almost see how much that will be. You don't want any looseness inside here at all. Sometimes people even put one. You're careful. You gotta be careful. You don't want to put it too far out that it's not covered. But some people do put two staples in there. So I think
Okay.
I really do think that you just that's a demonstration,
I
you
wasn't
guys.
sure when doing the corners, like, because I don't do that many corners actually. And I
What
wasn't.
made you decide to do the two pleats? Let's just bring it over this way.
Well, actually, when I started it.
Because you made the right decision.
Well, I mean, I was wondering if it was going to be a simple draping,
Mhm.
as I've done, I think, one of the autumns. I think there might have been a small corner I did. But this one here seemed a little bit like, oh, I should be doing something else.
No, you picked the right thing because you really have it's curved.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come to a point. And if it came to a point, you probably want one pleat. But I think that the two pleats was a good decision. You just have to tighten them up.
Right.
So I think this is a really good demonstration of why the online classes are so good, that people should probably check those out.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do go into a lot of that detail and we break it down much more than when I do a YouTube class. So I guess that's the point. Do you have anything to add to this, Jimmy?
No, just the fact that, again, I think when you work at home, I mean, having a garage or a basement area, wherever it is, and you have the proper tools, and again, something, a table, or even, again, we use the sawhorses all the time. It's a lot better than trying to do it in your living room. And that's,
Right.
you know, it's something I did, and I said, I really wasn't that fond of trying to do it in my living room. It was a mistake, you know. But I said, let me see what I can do. Let me see if I can get it as right as rain. But it didn't really come out the way I wanted it to, given the corners and all. It didn't come as natural as I wanted it to.
Yeah. So Jimmy, do you want to close this out until next time?
Well, till next time, everyone have a good week. Kevin and I will think of something for next weekend. We enjoy the questions and the answers, and Kevin likes the banter on. He loves the question and answers, that's for sure. And I see that Kevin's trying to make a wig for himself out of the horse here. So
What do you
obviously,
guys think?
yeah, obviously he likes the old Larry Curly look. So on that note, Kevin will try to weave a wig for himself on next week's show, and hopefully someone will be watching. But anyway, everyone have a good week and take care.
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun. We'll see you next week.